Everybody looked at this, and everybody's looked at it and said there's nothing there. Ask the right question.
There have been some accusations made, and it seems to me that I want to know if there's been proper follow-up. Has there been political influence to not proceed if there's reasonable possible criminal activity?
Senator Chuck Grassley, working alongside James Comer, says there's a new whistleblower here. Comer writing a letter with Grassley to the FBI and to the DOJ saying the information provided by a whistleblower raises concerns that then Vice President Biden allegedly engaged in a bribery scheme with a foreign national. The American people need to know if President Biden sold out the United States of America to make money for himself. The White House responded in a fairly lengthy statement. This is part of it. White House spokesperson saying Republicans, prefer floating anonymous innuendo amplified by the megaphone of their allies in the right-wing media to get attention, to try to distract and deflect from their own unpopular ideas and lack of solutions to the issues the American people actually care about, saying there's not substance here and that the president has been transparent. With that, let's bring in our panel. Fox News chief political analyst Britt Hume, Leslie Marshall, Democratic strategist, and Morgan Ortagus, former State Department spokesperson. Britt, let me start with you. This is now the second whistleblower we've heard about. You remember the 10-year vet of the IRS says that allegedly told Republicans that he does not believe that this investigation into the Hunter Biden situation is being handled properly. This seems more direct, at least in what's being said by Grassley and Comer.
Well, this is, after all, if there's anything to it, is about Biden himself and not simply his son and maybe through his son. On the other hand, we don't know who the whistleblower is. We don't know what foreign country was involved. We don't know how much money was involved, if any. We don't know what the specific influence that was being sought to do. In other words, we don't know very much. And this is an early stage of this. It doesn't keep these politicians on the Hill from coming out and talking about it and for the White House to respond. But we need to be careful here because, the air is full of charges, as it sometimes is, and we're entering the political season. So my advice is let's be careful here.
No, I agree, and we are being that. Leslie, we, caveat that we don't have any hard information, but we have these letters going out to the FBI and DOJ. This whistleblower says there is a specific document that is unclassified that alleges this scheme. So where does this go?
Well, if there is, in fact, a document that is unclassified that, takes the lid or blows the lid off of this scheme, then, certainly we, the American people, need to be aware of that, and we should be very worried and concerned about that. But here's the problem. I just don't see anything there. There's a lot of people that, point fingers, but where are the names? Where's the proof of this conversation? Where is this document that this said whistleblower is referring to?
Yeah, and we'll continue to follow it and look for the facts as they come. I want to turn to the economy. The Federal Reserve raising key interest rate by 0.25. Here's the chairman, Jerome Powell.
The case of avoiding a recession is, in my view, more likely than that of having a recession. But it's not that the case of having a recession is, I don't rule that out either. It's possible that we will have what I hope would be a mild recession.
You always have to read between the tea leaves there when the Fed chair talks, Morgan, but there's at least a chance of a recession here and some bumpy winds ahead maybe for the U.S. economy.
Yeah, and according to Goldman Sachs, about 65% of the economists that they spoke to in their poll did predict a recession. We will see. It's important to remember why we are in this situation today, why Jerome Powell is having to raise the interest rate by another 25 basis points. And that's because of the $3.37 trillion, that's trillion with a T, in new spending since President Biden came into office over the past 2 years. And that spending, and of course, the Fed the Fed missed the early signs of inflation, but that spending led us to where we are today and to the economic situation that we're in. I also thought it was interesting that Jerome Powell spent a lot of the press conference warning of what would happen if America, quote, doesn't pay our bills, referencing the debt debate that is going on in Washington right now. McCarthy still trying to get President Biden to meet with him. Looks like it may happen soon. But clearly, Jerome Powell was warning people that America's failure to pay our bills and to pay that on time will have lasting consequences for our economy, at least in the short run.
Yeah. And, it's interesting, Britt, that it is off to, we'll have that negotiation with the congressional leaders in the White House over the debt ceiling next week and talking about the budget. But the president's campaign launched. He's out with a second campaign today. He focuses on the U.S. economy, but he's taking tomorrow and the next day off as far as events. Take a listen to a piece of that ad.
Joe Biden's building an economy that leaves no city, no town, no American behind.
We're investing in places and people that have been forgotten. They've been invisible, but we haven't forgotten.
It uses that forgotten man and woman theme, but obviously the polls show concern about the U.S. economy, Britt.
Yeah, this is going to be a hard sell. I mean, I suppose they have to try because the economy is so important in these elections. But people hate this economy, and if there's a recession, they're going to hate it even more. So I guess I have to try this, but I don't see it's going to sell very well. And let's remember one other thing, too, when you hear the hand-wringing and see the hand-wringing, I should say, about defaulting on our debt. Defaulting on our debt, our national debt payments, would be a choice because there's enough tax revenue coming in, more than enough, to cover those payments. Now, if we don't raise the debt limit, a lot of other bills won't be paid, and it will be ugly, and there'll be spending cuts and so on. But it will not necessarily be a default. That would be a choice by the administration and the Treasury Department to let that happen.
Leslie, final word.
Well, I think Powell was signaling in his speech today that in September, perhaps that this would be the last rate hike, and in September things will come down. And I don't think this is surprising. And I think, even though the economists, like Morgan said, have predicted a recession, they keep predicting it and pushing it 6 months down the road, 6 months down the road. And regarding those polls, I don't believe the polls, because if we believed the polls, there would have been a tsunami in the midterms, and it would have been me that was drowned, my party, the blue, and it didn't happen.
Morgan, you believe the polls?
It depends. If they tell me what I want to hear, I guess I do believe them. I'm just kidding, Leslie. Well, listen, you don't have to look at the polls. Right? Just go to the grocery store with me. Go to the grocery store with moms like me around the country. Let's look at the price of eggs in the last presidency under Donald Trump. Let's look at the price of eggs now, the price of milk. That's whomever the Republican nominee is, that's what they need to run on. People aren't happy. They're still making choices of whether to fill up their gas tank full of gas or to go in the grocery store and fill up their cart full of groceries. And as long as they're making those choices, they're not going to be happy.
All right, panel. Thanks so much.